Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group MBA1183E. First, let me introduce my group member. My name is Muhammad Haris bin Abu Jamin.
My name is Muhammad Haziq bin Hamzah.
My name is Siti Nur Izzati binti Salamat.
My name is Nur Anis Akila binti Muhammad Adifuddin.
My name is Aimin Nur Adina binti Zahari.
My name is Nur Alia Adrina binti Nur Safawi.
Okay. The title that we present is Report of Russia Country. So the first slide I want to pass Siti Nur Izzati.
Thank you. Firstly, we go to the introduction of Russian country. Russian banks were hit by the global credit crisis in 2008, but thanks to proactive and timely response by the government and central bank, which shielded the banking system to prevent global financial crisis. In 2009, Russia was beginning a strong recovery. According to a survey provided by Financial Times in 2012, Russia was in the second place in economic performance among G20 based on 7 measures, which are gross domestic product growth, budget shortage, and government debt for 2012. It has changed in unemployment in 2009 to 2013. After 16 years of negotiation, Russia's membership of the World Trade Organization, which is WTO, was accepted in 2011. In 2013, Russia was labeled a high-income economy by the World Bank. In 2012, the oil, gas, and petroleum product has accounted for over 17% of the total export. This economic model appears to show its limits. After years of strong performance, Russian economy expanded by a 1.3% in 2013. GDP growth has been weak over the past 5 years because it was burned by structural weakness, low level of investment, and a poor demographic outlook, but has improved in 2018 and in 2020 index. Russia's economy score is 91.0, making its economy in the rank 94. Finally, in Forbes magazine lists the Russian was in rank 91 in the best countries for business. The country has made important improvement recently in areas like innovation and trade freedom.
Public policy. Public policy can be categorized as a dynamic, complex, and interactive system through which public problems are identified and resolved through the creation of new policy or reform of existing policy. The government holds a legal monopoly to initiate or threaten physical force to achieve its ends when necessary. For example, in time of choice when quick decision making is needed. Public policy also making a time-consuming policy circle. The basic stage of policy circle are follow a problem is identified, a policy response is formulated, the preferred solution is selected and implemented, and finally, the policy is evaluated. Fiscal policy. Objective of fiscal policy. Number 1, securing efficient allocation of economic resources. Number 2, attaining and maintaining full employment. Number 3, accelerating the rate of economic growth. Number 4, controlling the equitable distribution of income and wealth. Fiscal policy in Russia. The Russian current policy has been more effective than previous one in directing Russian economic growth and public finance from oil price movement. Besides, Russia coronavirus response has included interest rate cut, including a 100 BP cut on 19 June to a record low of 4.5% since inflation targeting was introduced in 2014, and a moderate fiscal response worth 2.9% of GDP, including guarantee. The economic impact of coronavirus and oil price shock, which forecast real GDP to contract 5% in 2020, which may expect additional borrowing to compensate for the loss of non-oil revenue and support anti-crisis spending. Other expect this to lift the structural primary deficit in 2020 to 1.9% of GDP, above of 0.5% of GDP level in fiscal rule. This could increase sovereign debt issuance in 2020 by RUB 1.5 billion. Expansionary. Expansionary fiscal policy has been appropriate given economy slack, but the fiscal deficit has rise to 3.5% of GDP. The important challenge for Russia to find fiscal room in the new environment of lower price. Fiscal space could be found by issuing government bonds to take advantage of low interest rate and the very low level of public debt, 18% of GDP. And the last, Russian government need to measure to tackle the grey economy and to raise non-oil taxation, especially as tax, environment tax and VAT, would raise revenue on sustainable basis. Contractionary. Number one, Russian budget surplus strong in 2019 on strong non-fuel revenue. Restrained spending according to preliminary government estimate. The Russian federal budget surplus reached 1.8% of GDP in 2019 or RUB 2.0 trillion. Number two, the key reason of contraction in headline surplus was the 5 to $6 drop in the average annual oil price that led to decline in oil and gas revenue by 1.3 of GDP to 7.3% of GDP. Non-oil revenue increased by 1.2 of GDP to 11.2% of GDP, mostly due to the two increase in VAT rate. And lastly, the non-oil and gas deficit of the Russian budget shrank by 0.5 to 5.5% of GDP. Budget break-even oil price declined from $49 in 2018 to $48 in 2019, the lowest reading since 2007. So this is the Russian fiscal policy from 2011 until 2019. Thank you.
After that, we have monetary policy. The Bank of Russia maintained inflation close to the target of 4%. Such a policy is called inflation targeting. The main instrument of monetary policy is the key rate. A change in the key rates impacts demand through interest rate in the economy and inflation. The Bank of Russia extensively explained the reason behind and the expected result of its decision on monetary policy. The understanding of and confidence in measures being implemented are critical for enhancing their efficiency. First, we have monetary policy goals and principles. The key goals of Bank of Russia monetary policy is to maintain price stability that is sustainably low inflation. Price stability is a critical element of a favorable environment for living and doing business, since it, number one, it can protect incomes and saving in the national currency from unpredictable depreciation, which help maintain living standard and long-term expenses with greater confidence. Number two, protect low-income households, primarily purchasing low-price basic goods. Sustainably low inflation help maintain consumption level. Number three, contribute to higher affordability of borrowing for companies by decreasing the inflation premium included by banks in their interest rate. And the last one, simplify financial and investment planning for businesses. Second, we have main principle of monetary policy. In order to achieve the inflation target, the Bank of Russia implements monetary policy. The consistency and predictability of central bank action are key in pursuing monetary policy. Therefore, the Bank of Russia monetary policy is based on a range of principles. Number one, the Bank of Russia has permanent public quantitative inflation target for household, businesses, and financial market participants. Number two, the inflation targeting regime involved a floating exchange rate determined by supply and demand in currency market. Number three, the key rate is the main instrument of the Bank of Russia monetary policy. And the last one is number four, the Bank of Russia make monetary policy decision relying on the microeconomic forecast and the analysis of a wide range of data.
Next is contractionary. The current economic Russia situation is generally look very promising. When making decisions about monetary policy in March, we were considering the possibility of continuing to reduce the key rate in the second quarter. If the economic situation develops in accordance with our forecast. In March, inflation went down to 4.3%, and according to assessments on 17 April, inflation has already fallen year on year to 4.1%, which is very close to target. When carrying out monetary policy, we will be sticking to be a careful and considered approach, taking into account risks and uncertainties, including movement in the behavior of oil price, and we will be keeping monetary policy moderately tight in order to keep the rate of inflation at around 4% and to foster the reduction in inflation expectations.
Apart from that, we have tool of monetary policy. Money growth in the economy can occur multiply effect from the reserve ratio. The conventional view in economic theory that reserve requirement can be a tool monetary policy. The higher of reserve requirement is set, the less the amount of fund bank have to loan out, which leading to a lower money creation. And the tools are: number one, raising the discount rate. Number two, raising the reserve requirement. Number three, open market operation, which is selling of security or short-term bonds. Number four, raising the interest rate. And the last one is number five, selective credit control policy. Definition of inflation. Inflation can be defined as a continuous increase in the price level of goods and services in the economy. Inflation also refers to a continuous increase in the general price level, although the price of every product and service might not increase. For example, if the inflation rate is 6%, it does not mean that all price will increase by 6%. In other words, inflation also decline the purchasing power of a given currency over time. The rise in the level of price, often shown in percentage, means a unit of currency effectively buy less than it did in prior period. Inflation can be different from deflation, which occur when the purchasing powers of money increase and price decline. There are various degrees of inflation, such as creeping inflation. Number two, mild inflation, and the last one is hyperinflation. It occurs when monthly price is rise by 50% to 60% and more. And after that, measuring rate of inflation. Measuring rate of inflation is measured by the Consumer Price Index (CPI) that reflect the annual percentage change in the cost of the average consumer of goods and services that may be fixed or changed in specific interval, such as yearly. And if you can see, for 2019, the measuring rate was increased, and for 2018, the measuring rate was declined, and for 2017 until 2016, the measuring rate was declined again, but it started to increase from 2015 until 2013. Back to 2012, the measuring rate of inflation was declined. In 2011, the measuring rate was increased, and the last one is 2010, which is the measuring rate of inflation was declined.
Next, we have causes of inflation. Firstly, we have fall in oil price. In Russia's economy is heavily dependent upon fossil fuel exports. In February 2014, fossil fuel prices began to break because of the boom in American oil production. For each $1 decline in fossil oil price, the Russian economy loses billion of dollars. The value of oil fell from $100 per barrel in June 2014 to 69.84 cent dollar per barrel in December 2014. The visit the oil prices was caused by a call the demand for oil across the globe. This fall in oil price hit Russia hard, as roughly half the Russian Federation governmental revenue comes from the sale of oil and gas. Russia's economy suffers from Dutch disease, a term economists use to explain a situation within which a state focuses on developing its natural resources to the detriment of other economic activity. In 2014, Russia need an oil price of $100 per barrel to post a budget because the price of oil falls. Russia continues to sell its oil at operational capacity without the power to dramatically increase dealing cheaper amount for the cheaper price. Thus, because of the reduced make the most of selling oil, the government has a substantially lower income. Next is other possible causes. Other possible causes, Russian President Putin has been criticized for running a kleptocracy within which a small number of rent-seeking plutocrats drain the economy. Also, Russia was ranked second within the world on the economy's 2014 Crony Capitalism Index. Putin accused the Western nation of engineering the Russian economic condition. For the most part, three types of sanctions were imposed. Firstly, ban on provision of technology for oil and gas exploration. Next, ban on provision of credits to Russian oil companies and state banks. Lastly, travel restrictions on the influential Russian citizens near President Putin and involved within the annexation of Crimea.
Next is demand pull inflation in Russia. Russia is an essential market and an important supplier of raw materials. Demand pull is the most important and common kind of inflation that occurs when the total demand for consumer goods and services exceeds the availability of supply. When demand is greater, the natural tendency would be for prices to rise or increase. The demand pull inflation could be attributed to the following factors, which is depreciation of exchange rate which increase the price and reduce the price of exports. Higher demand from a fiscal stimulus by reducing direct or indirect taxation on government spending. If taxes are lowered, consumers will have more disposable income or money to spend with, and this will cause demand for products and services to rise. Cost push inflation. First, cost of production or manufacturing rise due to a variety of reasons, forcing price of finished goods and services to increase. This is usually due to the rise in wage in excess of any profit in labor production that rise unit cost production and rise prices. Factors that cause cost push inflation is component cost and increase in the price of minor components for the manufacturing or production process would naturally entail a rise of prices for the finished product or service. Rising labor costs is caused by increase in salaries and wage. This happens when unemployment is low and there is a great demand for skilled workers. Thank you.
Other than that, we have effect of inflation. Effect on inflation. Over the long term, financial and sectoral tension limit the growth potential of Russia by discouraging domestic and foreign investment. The negative effect apply not only to directly sanctioned sectors like the defense and oil industry, indirectly sanctioned and counter-sanctioned, and the deterioration of economic and political relation with the United States and the European Union negatively impact the overall economic framework. In addition to this, research cooperation with the West increase the role of military and security agency and limit civil liberties. As far as economic are concerned, sanction and counter-sanction increase protectionism and economic nationalism. All of these factors contribute to the worsening business and also the investment climate in Russia.
Besides that is measure to control inflation. The aim of every measure is to minimize the inflow cash in the economy. Number one is there are the measures taken by the economy. Firstly, economy has used money to influence the actual interest rate. By increase the interest rate, it can reduce the money supply. Second, economy has continued the export service. This is because Russian country is considered as a free enterprise as well as having an important transmission mechanism through exchange rate. Then demand volume will affect the inflation. Third, economy has maximized the impact of inflation policy to adopt a balanced approach. This is to stimulate production and business activities, aggregate supply, economic growth, and so on. Fourth is economy has controlling the country's macroeconomy. As an example of the growing economy is the process of production, distribution, marketing, and so on. Number two is the measure taken by the consumer. First, consumer has ensured and understood the content of an item before buying. These goods are able to function at lower price. Second, consumer has managed their finance prudently to deal with rising price. For example, they record every use of goods that have a price rise. Third, consumer have used substitute items that provide satisfaction. The demand of original goods has decreased and it referred to as a change in economic demand.
Okay, so next we have definition of unemployment. The definition of unemployment is a situation where labor force participants are available and willing to work but are unable to find jobs. Unemployment is a term used to refer to a situation where someone who in working age cannot get a job but would like to work full-time. There are three criteria definition of unemployment. Firstly, without a job. Without a job is a differentiate work and non-employment, ensuring collective exclusion from employment and employment and prioritizing work. Second, currently available for work. A person should be able and willing to work, provided a job opportunity. Third, seeking a job. Seeking a job is a terms of an active search for work in line with the labor force system active theory. Next, we have measuring unemployment rate. Measuring unemployment rate is determined by dividing the number of unemployed people by the number of people working. The unemployment rate is a percentage of people in the labor force who are unemployed. As you can see, unemployment rate in Russia from 2019 until 2016, it was declined. For 2015, it increased, and for 2014, declined. 2013 increased, and 2012 until 2010 it was declined. Moreover, we have types of unemployment. There are four types of unemployment, which is frictional unemployment. It happens when employees look for new jobs or move from one workplace to another. For example, workers quit their jobs to find a better position. Second, cyclical unemployment occurs when there is a lack of jobs resulting from a downswing in a business cycle or a recession. Third, seasonal unemployment. Seasonal unemployment happens when there is a seasonal variation in the activities of industries. For example, when there is demand for a specific job type. Lastly, we have structural unemployment. It happens when labor market cannot supply anyone who wishes to work with jobs.
Then is the effect of unemployment. unemployment have a major impact on individuals in society as well as on the economy. Number one is unemployment on individuals. First, it will affect to the financial affairs, which is there will be lost income. They will earn a lower income so that it is difficult to meet the necessity of life. Second, it will make individual loss of job expertise in skill. It will cause a person to become unskilled employee when got a new job. Third, it will affect the person psychologically, which is the mental health and many more. It will affect when they are lacking of self-esteem confidence. They will lead to depression, anxiety and stress. Number two is unemployment on society. First, it will affect to the profession network. For example, co-workers who have not lost their job may feel pain from fear that they will be fired soon. Second, it will impact to the social and political problems, which means unemployment is the social cost that Russians are paying for their change to market economy. Third, it will increase in unemployment and poverty in the society. This is because insufficient housing, lack of recreational activities, limited of public transport, and so on are important of the unemployment. Number three is the impact of unemployment on economy. First, it will increase government economy borrowing. The higher unemployment has caused a drop in income tax. Second, there are many shops that need to be closed. This is because they cannot operate the shop due to the lack of workers. Third, the level of investment decreased so that economic growth is also not accelerate. This has caused the economic decline. The last part is measure to reduce unemployment. Russia is not an exception to the unemployment case. Number one is the measure to reduce and overcome the unemployment among individuals. First, individuals create a personal advert. It means that the unemployed start their effort by creating personal aids. Second, individuals searching through the list of job vacancies. For example, take note to the important info about job vacancies in the newspaper. Third, individual applying directly to employer and the leader of personnel department, which is go to the relevant office and apply directly. Fourth, individuals applying for relief to the local bodies of the Federal Employment Service and private agencies. It means asking for help to the authority. Fifth, individuals using the personal network of contact, relevance and friends. Most respondents are having one chance to get a job depends on unemployed network. Number two is the measure to reduce and overcome the unemployment to the economy. First, recent country was cutting tax to boost aggregate demand by fiscal policies. It can reduce by helping to add aggregate demand. Second, monetary policy is to reduce the interest rate to stimulate aggregate demand. If the interest rate was lower, so it will reduce interchange rate and make export to be competitive. Third, the government parties were creating an education and training program because they want to help to reduce the unemployment. Fourth, the government provide opportunities to business funding arrangement, especially to the youth or the unemployed. And lastly, the government's action has introduced an economic stimulus package, as well as a measure to reduce policy is to restore the country's economy from unemployed.
Finally, we have conclusion here. In view of the unfavorable demographic trends facing by Russia, the stimulation of the AP is the only way to boost potential growth and return to a gradual convergence of gross domestic profit per capita with high-income countries. However, this calls for both institutional and structural reform, which in turn depend on policy reforms. The recommendation focus on four areas where this reform may be implemented, such enhance the investment climate, in particular by strengthening property rights and enforcing contracts. For instance, the reinforcement of property rights and the execution of contract will be impossible without a real independence of the judiciary. In addition to this, reducing the high standard of business operation and licensing, thereby discouraging foreign investment. The further integration of Russia into the world economy must go beyond the deepening of trade relations. It requires large-scale economic and technological partnership and cooperation with major advanced economies such as the European Union and the United States. Next, also invest in infrastructure to enhance connectivity, reduce transportation costs, and provide greater access to domestic and international markets. Next, Russia's future economic development will depend to a large extent on global economic growth and stability in international commodity and financial markets. Moreover, creation of a more efficient good market, among other things, by the simplification of custom procedures. In other words, Russia should play an active role in defending and enhancing the world's liberal economy in order through relevant reforms. Furthermore, deepen and enhance commercial relations beyond the immediate neighbors of Russia. Lastly, support innovation through increased resources for research and development. So that's all. Thank you.
That's all from us about economy of Russia country. Thank you for watching. Bye.
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 Bye.